Okay, supposedly we're live. Let's see. All right, I'm going to really turn it to you to kind of guide the conversation. So we can be talking about things that you saw in the quiz that you were just like, what? It could be things that you're seeing on my notes in Canvas that you're like, or it might even be that, okay, I think I know about this, but can we just make it clear? What do we need to talk about coming off of Act 1?
I kind of felt like Happy wasn't a part of the family.
That is a very fair read to make. Why?
Because Willie was putting all his like hope and stuff in Biff,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't realize that he was actually. I kept messing up and thinking that was Biff's girlfriend, and I was like, no, that's his brother.
No, it's not a bad read. And if you go to the past, there's a definite way that we can really connect what you're noticing to textual evidence. Did you pick up on what he keeps telling his dad when he was a kid? He keeps going back to it. I think I put it in the notes. I'm losing weight, Pop. Did you notice? Keep saying it. Never gets any kind of attention. You will notice, even in the past, when Willie talks to both boys, the conversation is very Biff-centric. He may answer a question that was posed by Happy, but he almost never uses his name. He never acknowledges him. So we do see that like younger brother issue come into play. But even by the end of the act, did you notice what he says to his mom before the end of Act 1? Like Linda and Willie are both in bed. And as they say goodnight, Happy's like, Mom, I'm getting married. Did I tell you? And she's just like, go to bed. She just kind of brushed it. It's one of the most hilarious parts of the entire play because here they're so excited for Biff. Tomorrow you're going to have this opportunity. And Happy's like, I'm going to do things too. And his parents are like, shut up. Get out of here. Absolutely. You notice that the past, the presentations of the past that we get in this, the memories and the kind of wanderings of Willie, allow us to see how we've created the men that we now have. Because if you noticed, Biff is 34. His brother is 30. As they're talking as adults, you're making a face.
Yeah, is it Happy 32?
32, 30, he's somewhere there. Yeah, you're right. But even there, do they sound like 30-some-year-old men?
No.
Not at all. These are like stunted adults. Part of it we can definitely rack to their lack of identity. They don't understand who they're supposed to be. They haven't figured out their place in the world yet, but it's also because of the load of crap they've been fed for all these years from their father. They've never felt confident in expressing who they are, and especially for Happy. Look at what it's produced. How would you describe adult Happy?
Low expectations.
What do you mean by low expectations?
Like he doesn't expect the whole thing.
From the family. But what about in his life? So if you go back and you look at that conversation that he has with his brother, this is probably our best way to see Happy's characterization in the work. For lack of a better term, he's a man whore. Let's be honest. He talks about womanizing. He talks about how he ruins women. He has a discussion with his brother, and I know this is in the notes, about his first time as they're reminiscing here in the bedroom. And he describes this girl as a dog. He says, that was my first time, I think. Did you process that line at all when you read it? So think about what he has said, right? First he says, I think it was my first time, and then he says, man, there was a dog, or he says something to that effect. Do you really think that he doesn't remember if that's his first time? Not for nothing, that's a pretty seminal moment in anyone's life. He knows But why do we have the dash and then the I think that follows it? Because he idolizes his brother. Because he knows how this girl is viewed. Because he doesn't want to take credit for it. And so all of a sudden it makes him seem like a piece of trash in putting down this girl to try to seek the like attaboy from his brother. We see him follow it up so we can support this characterization because he talks about how he goes to weddings of girls that he slept with. And like he relishes in the fact that I ruined them. Who does adult happy sound an awful lot like? What do we get in the past that we can connect to adult happy in the present? What do we find out about Willie?
Oh, he's a bit.
If you're looking, hey, we have a womanizing Willie, father figure. What do we produce? We produce this son that feels like there is no consequence. He can go out and do as he will with women. We often see, and we play it up here, the past informs what we see in the present. And we use the structure of the play to help to expose not just who these characters are, but how they have come to this place, why they are that way. There is no better example in the first act than how Willie teaches his sons a definition of success. According to Willie, success is what? Being well liked. Notice that that's a direct quotation. Being well liked is Willie's concept of success that he has fed to his children all these years. But what does the past show us about Willie Loman? What has? Is he well liked?
No.
Why would you say no?
Because in the story, well, I read the story and then I had like YouTube videos like summarizing the acts.
Uh-huh.
In some of the summaries, it would say that like with Willie's followers, there were times when he was like disrespectful to people. So I don't think he was well liked if he was disrespectful to them.
Not at all. He likes to boast that he is. He likes to play this game, but when the numbers have to be put on the table, Willie Loman cannot produce. Go to the scene in the past where he talks to his wife about how much he sold on his trip. He goes within not even a page from 1,600 units to 600. He changes his numbers drastically when it comes down to actual figures. When you have to prove it, all of a sudden his boast disappears and we see that he's just a hypocrite. For a guy that talks about being contradicted as much as he does in this play, he contradicts himself constantly. So he fills his boys with this false sense of what being successful looks like. And he also fills them with a second ideal. Part of being well liked is also what? Looking good, specifically athletics. When he comes back from his trip, the first thing he gives his sons is they have a football. We're going to get to that in a second. He's brought them what? The silence is part of where I'm wondering how much you took notes, how much you paid attention. Because I'm letting it sit for a purpose. If you're kind of sitting here and struggling, you ain't doing your job reading. I'm not asking you like difficult things. He brings him back a punching bag. They even talk about the fact that it has Gene Tunney's signature. Gene Tunney was a famous from. They stole it. Now let's be clear. Biff stole it, but what does he tell his dad? Oh, the coach let me borrow it. And Willie tells him, you take it back. They understand that. They get it. They get the game they're playing. They think that they can get away with it because they're well-liked. And he even says that. If Biff was anybody else, he would get in trouble. Notice that sports plays a role in this. Physical ability. Happy thinks he should be successful at work because he thinks he can outbox, outrun, and outlift his boss. Why? Because in the past, this is how he's been taught success looks like. Yet, is Willie Loman this physical specimen of a man? No, he's called a walrus. Well, he thinks he's being called a walrus. When he talks to Linda, he all of a sudden gets really serious right before they introduce the woman, and he talks about his insecurities, and he tells that story about being in an office, and he heard somebody say walrus, and he punched a guy. The guy didn't say it to him. He wasn't necessarily talking about him, but Willie is so insecure about how he looks and who he is that he's willing to punch a complete stranger in the face. Yeah. So when we're looking at these ideals of success, we should notice that, one, they're false. They're not clear ideals of success. But they've been taught to these boys. So now as they're adults and they're realizing it's not working, they don't know what to do. Where does Willie's identity come from? Go back to the very beginning and what we talked about in that introductory thing. Willie sees himself as a salesman. But is he a successful salesman? Not at all. Look at what these two boys are struggling with in terms of their identities. What job has Happy gone into? We don't know specifically, but if you had to guess. Something corporate, right? Is that a natural track from sales to get into the corporate world? Is that a natural transition? Why do you think he's doing it? What? To get attention from who? His dad. I'm going to be successful just like you were. So we see one son go to this corporate end. What's Biff trying to do? Biff wants to work outside with his shirt off, as he says. He wants to get his hands dirty. He wants to do physical labor. We talked about this shifting move of society pre-World Wars and then probably where we are here with the play with the 1950s. Think about the changing nature of work over time. And these two kids are caught in the middle of it. Biff wants to go and pursue working with his hands. It's what he likes to do. But how many of you have wanted to go and do something like that and been told, no, you can't? You have to go to college. You have to learn. You can't do a trade. Then we get Happy. He's pursuing what his dad has told him, but he's not really finding great success, just like his dad. But hey, what is Willie good at? Remember, his mind is falling apart. So when we look at that reality warping, it's not that he's good at it. It's that he's literally like falling apart. The dementia's taking him on. Charlie talks to him about doing something. What? Charlie wants to give him a job, yeah, but they talk about something Willie's done, and Charlie's like, well, how did you do it? Willie has put up a new ceiling in his house. Charlie's trying to get him to talk. But we see that Willie's good with his hands. We can back that up with a scene with Ben. When Ben needs to leave, and Willie tells his boys, hey, go over there. What does he want to do to show Ben that they're men, that they can do things? He tells the sons, go over there and steal some lumber and some cement, and we're going to rebuild the stoop. We're going to work with our hands to show how successful we are. What did Willie's dad do?
Like as his profession?
Mhm.
Oh, he was a salesman that sold things.
He sold, but he also made them. You notice that Willie's dad was able to fuse these two worlds of salesman and working with your hands. But Willie only focused on sales. He has a natural gift to work with his hands, but he doesn't ever acknowledge it. He's now produced two boys that he has taught. You have to be well liked, and your physical ability can make you better than others. One is following his father into the corporate world and not succeeding, just like his dad didn't. And one is trying to go after what he likes, but it's his dad's expectations of success that pull him back. And you notice the time of year that it always questions. Spring, a time of rebirth, a time of new beginnings, forces Biff to kind of question where his life is and come running back. We notice that this play centers around fathers and sons, around brothers, around male relationships. And in almost all of them, there is something missing. Whether it's attention, whether it's correct focus, whether it's a father figure, there's always something that's missing. And we also see that here, we get the split of Willie Loman. I'm good at working with my hands, but that's not success. Success is in the business world. The modern world has shown me I can make money, I can be successful by going into business, but it doesn't work for them. Are some things becoming clear now for you where you're going, oh, what's he relate Biff to at the end of Act 1? It's this big illusion. We literally bathe Biff in a golden light. Which one? Hercules! 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 Now, is that movie before your time? The Nutty Professor? Thank you. Hercules, half man, half God. This figure that's so great. But is Biff Loman that figure? No, Biff Loman sucks. Biff Loman is a failure. He hasn't figured out what he wants to be. And so his dad sees him like this great figure. But meanwhile, the audience is going, he's pathetic. He's awful. He's a 34-year-old man that doesn't know what's going on. By the end of the act, we see that irony because Biff is no more than that little trophy that's up in the room. Whose trophy is it? It's Biff's trophy sitting in Willie's room. Where'd it come from? High school, what'd he do to get the trophy? Football. They won the city championship. Willie talks about it as we see Biff bathed in gold. And he says, it was the biggest moment of Biff's life. Everybody was chanting his name, but what are they chanting? They're chanting what would be on the back of his jersey, which is their last name, which is Loman. Did you catch the name? Loman. 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 And if you've invested as much as Willie has in his son, and everybody is chanting, what are you hearing? Me! I did this. This is my moment. That's why the trophy is still in his room. In Willie's room, not Biff's room, Willie's room, because it was his moment. And we start to go, oh, this play is really like sad. Yes, it's why it's a tragedy. Because by the end of Act 1, what's Biff holding? That's your homework. You need to go back and reread. Because as we get into Act 2, if you can't tell me what he's holding by the end of Act 1, you got no hope in Act 2. Huh? A tube. What kind of tube? Yes, from the water heater, how he's trying to kill himself by asphyxiation. He's literally holding his father's life in his own hands, which is what his mother told him. Biff, your dad's life is in your hands. And here at the end of Act 1, when Linda will not take action, she will not step in to keep her husband from killing himself because she doesn't want to embarrass him. Just think about that. She loves him so much, she would rather not embarrass him and he die. Biff has finally taken action. I'm taking the rubber hose away. It's important as we move into Act 2 because we will see, does Biff take action? Now that we know Biff thinks he's going to go get a business job, we'll see. Biff thinks he's going to find success, we'll see. But does Biff finally take action here in this family? That's what's most important. Stop this. So as we get ready and move on, Act 2 is going to wrap it.